year, if you're retiring debt, then that number drops every year. So if you look at the debt service line, if you went back and historically looked at that line will either go up or down based on the level of debt that you have. So every budget ought to reflect any decrease in debt service. The town doesn't hang on to anything. It simply drops the debt service line in the budget. And I'm sure if you went back and looked at the last 5 years, you're going to see that the town's debt service line changes every year.
Well, I guess that's where I'm confused, and I keep bringing up this question.
Can you use the microphone, please?
All right. I guess that's why I'm kind of being a pest, and I keep raising up this question, and I'm really confused. And then if that's paid off, why does the mill rate not go down? I'm missing something.
Yeah, your mill rate consists of a number of things: school spending, town spending, debt service, county tax, and lots of other smaller items. Your debt service is what, 1% of the total. So your debt service could be cut in half tomorrow, and it's going to have a small impact on your budget, not a large impact. Well, I don't want to get into a rant here. You don't have a lot of debt on the books, and the reason you don't have a lot of debt on the books is you haven't been maintaining your infrastructure. You should have a lot more debt on the books than you do, because you should be maintaining your roads, you should have better equipment. There's lots of things that aren't being done here that normally would be done in a community of this size. Now, I'm not going to cast judgment why that hasn't happened in the past. It's different in every community. But I can tell you have very, very low debt service. Your debt service legally could be $100 million. Your debt service is probably $7 or $8 million. Incredibly low number for a town this size. And I can tell you that when we pay off debt every year and we don't have new debt in Lisbon, your debt service number that's in the budget that goes into the overall calculation of your mill rate drops. And if you, I don't, it's not like Jessica has lots of time, but if you and ask Jessica to give you the last 5-year debt service number, you're going to see that number has probably been dropping over that period of time. It's complicated, I know that, and you're not being a pest.
Would you ever just give us a slide to give us a historical perspective across a couple towns and compare it to Lisbon, residentially speaking?
Can you use the microphone, please, Mrs. Bailey? Thank you.
Thank you. Could we also have Jessica prepare these slides in a historical perspective so that we can see what the debt servicing is, and that in another town or 2 or 3 towns' perspective for comparison purposes, because some of us aren't a treasurer, we didn't get a PhD in municipal finance, so that way we can be an informed voter when we go to vote for the town budget and things. Thank you.
Yeah, we could do that. We'd probably use your neighbor to the east and the west, if that would work, Thompson and Auburn. Then you could see what, I think we could do that quite easily, assuming that Auburn and Thompson will give us their numbers. And going back, you should never think of yourself as a pest. If you have questions, be sure to ask them.
My name is George Lassard. I live in this town. I've been living here about 15 years. My wife was born in Lisbon. This past year, the taxes have gotten so bad that I almost sold my home. This is my retirement home, and I almost sold it. I decided to keep it only because I was able to make an apartment downstairs to help me keep my home, because I can't afford it no more. Taxes are way too high. I'd like to remain in this town, but if the taxes keep going too high, I will be forced to move. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lassard.
Okay, hello everybody, Lisa Levine again. The reason I'm here is I've only lived in Lisbon for a year. When I moved in, I was told by the realtor the taxes were about $2,200. My first tax bill I got was like $3,100, which was like $100 short of a friend of mine who has double the land, double the barns, double the acreage, because I was new. I fought the taxes, got them down a couple hundred. I used to be a realtor, so I did a CMA on my house with other properties within a mile of me. I don't think the person even looked at it. He said, here's $100 off your taxes. They're still $400 too high. And I'm saying, you know, when people buy homes, your town, your home is your investment. People have a set amount of disposable income. The higher the taxes, the less your house is worth. Taxes always go up. Houses go down. So how much do you want to leave your children, like this gentleman just said? Because until you can control your budget, here we are talking about bonds tonight, this gentleman is telling us how we are barely making what we're making on a maintenance plan. And looking at the bonds, it looks like my tax is going up a lot more next year. They're reevaluating the town. I am suggesting that we put things on hold, stay on maintenance, until we know what our town evaluation taxes are next year. Because I am not at all happy with how they treated me when I took very good comps that I spent a lot of time saying, I'm not looking for unreasonable tax cuts. I want to pay a reasonable amount according to what my neighbors are paying. And I was brushed off. I cannot imagine what my tax is going to be when we go to 100% evaluation and add bonds on top of that. That's what's really scaring me. I'm here in town now. How do I sell a house? Taxes going through the roof. My house value is going down. What's happening to your house value? What's happening to your kids' future? How much is a track and a new gym going to make up when you have to move out of town? I say get your budget together, figure out your cuts, get things under control, take care of your maintenance. Once you get that done, just like any household budget, then save some money and buy something you want. But don't keep buying year in and year out when you can't handle what you got, because you're going to chase people out of town. Thank you.
I'm going to just briefly interrupt, and you will speak. I just want to make sure that people understand we are trying to keep comments as short as possible, and it's only so that we can allow others to speak. So please keep it as brief as possible. We appreciate everything everyone has to say this evening. Thank you.
Norman Albert, Lisbon Falls. While I appreciate what you just said and what Mr. Lassar said as well, nobody wants to see any resident have to make tough choices about where they're going to live, especially if it's their retirement home or otherwise. At the same time, looking at what we have, yeah, those are some scary numbers popped up there, and it certainly is going to make a lot of people have a knee-jerk reaction to say, we can't afford this, we can't do this. I'm going to say this now, as I said in the public meeting a couple weeks ago. If not now, when? When are we going to do this? People come to the community and they make evaluations about how they're going to move here based on what we look like and what we do. And right now, our school is crumbling around itself. We can't host simple playoff. We can't even host our own regular season games, for that matter. We have to go elsewhere. This can draw in business. And it's not just a school or a track. You can look at it, and I looked today on my lunch break. I looked at our neighboring schools to see what kind of tracks they have. Brunswick, Mount Ararat. Those kids go out there with the Lisbon name on their jerseys, and they represent us in other communities, and we hear things about our student athletes, such as respectful, great sportsmanship, but they can't host at home because they run on kitty litter. And if you haven't been down to the track, please, I encourage you to go before you make any decision. Go look at that track and say to yourself, I understand I have taxes, we have a lot of maintenance needs to be done. Great information tonight. So I just say, we have to look to the future. We really do.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think we're sort of rolling into the public
We are.
on the bond issues, so we might want to move to that.
We'll save we'll have plenty of time during the hearings on the individual bond issues, and you're right, Mr. Olmsted, we do seem to be floating in that direction. So, did you have anything more that you wanted
No,
to say?
I almost, any other questions for me before we move on to the bond issues? Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about the Public Works building, and First thing I want to say is, and I've been asked this by a couple of people, where did this plan come from? Well, so being new here, I had to really figure out where this plan came from. So let's start out by saying we have a proposed bond issue because we had a fire. We had a fire that caused significant damage to the building, $300,000 worth of damage, that's the current estimate. However, everyone agrees that if we move to fix that building, that number's going to grow because once they start pulling plywood off walls and so on, they're going to find things that they can't see currently. The building is 6,400 square feet. Your public works building for a community this size with the fleet of equipment you have, the number of employees, ought to be no less than 14,000 square feet and as large as 20,000. The building we currently have was built in the 1960s. It's a block building, flat roof, still build flat roofs in Maine for some reason. Also, we need to talk about the salt storage building. Anybody here work for the DEP? All right, see no hands. I dare to say this, but you have a salt building that's totally inadequate sitting next to a river. You have an uncovered sand salt pile, and yes, they're grandfathered, but they're not environmentally safe. And I am surprised that the DEP has not stepped in and forced you to build a proper sand salt storage facility. That facility today would cost you north of $300,000. Can the state force you to do that? Yes, they can. How can they force you to spend that kind of money? They withhold it from your revenue sharing payments. That's how they get you. However, the way it's going, we won't have any revenue sharing soon. So, and the building, even before I bond, in my opinion, it was pretty deplorable working conditions. Air quality is horrible. If you haven't been to that building, well, you can't go now because it's been burned out, but you could go look at it now, and it wasn't much better before it burned, in my opinion. So, there have been plans in in Lisbon. In 2006, a 20,000 square foot building was planned, new construction for $1.75 million, taken to the voters, and it failed. In 2007, that plan was revised, reduced to 13,000 square feet, plus using the existing building, budget was reduced to $1.4 million. That was defeated by a much narrower vote. 2014, here we are again. What we've done is we've resurrected the 2006 plan. We've reduced that plan in size down to about 14,000 square feet. And we are going to have cash in hand. The insurance company will either step in and restore the old building to the condition it was in before the fire, or it will give you the check and say, do what you want with it. So we have $3,000 cash in hand. If the voters were to approve another $1.1 million, we could build a 14,000 square foot facility. Now, I put 1.3 may be needed, and I'll explain why shortly. The 2014 bond issue proposal would take advantage of the $300,000 insurance settlement. We would not be wasting that money on the old facility. And I can tell you, I have met with countless insurance company, the insurance company, their representatives. They have sent building inspectors to the site. We worked with Hebert Construction, a local firm who builds large commercial buildings. And to the person, everyone has said to me, if you put $300,000 back into that old building, it's an absolute waste of money. Now, so I think the question before the town is, are we going to invest in that infrastructure? Now, as we started talking about what to do with the building, and I currently need to understand, Public Works is operating at several different locations, which is not a good situation. Right now, we're not able to put plow trucks inside. And I can tell you it's not an issue here now in April. It's going to be a big issue in December. And no matter what we do, we're probably going to go through a rough winter because even if we decided to build new today or the voters approved soon a new bond issue, it's going to take us, with the planning, the bidding process, and the construction process, at least 8 to 10 months to get through that, if not longer. So the town's got to come up with a plan for the next year, irregardless of what the voters and the citizens of this town decide, when you decide what approach you want to take. So, there were a number of people that came into my office, folks that introduced themselves and said, look, we were here when the 2006, 2007 bond issues went out to the voters. We think you ought to consider, in lieu of building something new on that site, buying something. There may be some buildings in town that could be purchased that would be more cost efficient. So we began to look at those possibilities, and I learned that at one time the town talked to ETTI about buying their building. Also, Longchamps was approached, and they said, yes, we would consider selling as well. Now, right now, we're renting some space from Longchamps for vehicle maintenance. Longchamps is about on the Lewiston line. So I went to both owners and said, is it okay if we publicly talk about you at this hearing? And the answer from both was, we're interested in working with the town, partnering with the town, and yes, you can talk about these possibilities, these options. So I want to talk about the ETTI building, which is located very near the Public Works building that burned. It's literally next to it. I've toured the building. It's 24,000 square feet. The cost to buy the building's unknown because we'd have to appraise the building. I've heard rumors that a price was agreed upon in the past, but you have to have an appraisal to be sure that both parties are getting a fair deal. That building, if some of you have been in that building, you know how beautiful that building is. It's huge. It's got office space, it's got mezzanine space, it's got a lot of bays. If the town were to decide not to build new, but to buy that building, you could talk about real consolidation of services. That building would house Public Works. I'm just throwing this out. I got department heads here who might think I'm stretching a bit, but if I could wave a magic wand, that could house Public Works, it could house fire, it could house school bus storage and maintenance. It would have a suite of offices that could accommodate superintendent needs or town needs. There are endless possibilities with that building that would lower costs of the town overall, which would help offset the payment of the bonds. It would also resolve the issue that I've raised about the sand salt pile. What I would not want to do is tear the old building down that burned out. We need to get sand salt undercover as state law requires. You're going to have to do it eventually and probably sooner than later anyway. That the old burned out shell could serve as a sand salt storage building. So you could save $300,000 in building a new facility as well. So the ETTI possibility brings some real opportunity to the town. There would be a fun project. If I were going to be here, this is the type of project that would keep me excited. I hope before I leave to get it started, but that could be a really exciting project. Longchamps, 10,000 square feet, it's an expandable building. It would certainly meet Public Works needs, but it wouldn't accommodate the needs of other operations of the town or school. Again, the cost is unknown. It would have to be appraised. It would be a cheaper facility. It would give us room to room because it's 131 acres, and the owner has said he would sell us whatever acreage we needed. So if we wanted to buy 10 acres on the building, the owner would make that available. And the downside of that property is it's not centrally located. It's on the one end of town. And two, if you did purchase that building and moved your Public Works operation to that building, you then would trigger you certainly trigger the need to build a new sand salt storage facility. You would lose your grandfathering because you've moved your operation. And that you would have to factor in an additional cost of $300,000. Or, I guess, and the option I didn't spend a lot of time on, because I don't personally think it's the best option, is to simply build a new facility. I think you get a much better bang for your buck if you could work with Longchamps or ETTI. And ETTI, in my opinion, would add some, that would be an exciting project. We could work with the school folks, members of the community, the council. I mean, we could have some fun with that project and really benefit the town of Lisbon. But in order to do that, you have to support a bond issue. If you don't, I don't know what you're going to do with Public Works. Operational issues, no matter what we do, it's going to take 10 to 12 months to accomplish. We've got to come up with an alternate plan for Public Works for the next year. Ryan's working on that. We'll figure that out, but it cannot be a long-term plan. We've got the conversion of the existing building into a sand salt storage. The $50,000, we might need to convert that to sand salt storage. I feel that's probably a high number. We've got to get some lights back in the building, and we've got to get the overhead doors replaced. So I think the $50,000 is probably way too heavy. And then, the other issue we've got to deal with until the town resolves the issue of Public Works, and do we build or buy, or do nothing, I guess, except fix the old building, we've got to rent. And we could spend up to $50,000 in a single year renting space. And we're currently, right now, the insurance company is paying for the rental. We are negotiating with them. I hope to get them to agree to give us 5 or 6 months rental, but at some point, the insurance company will cut us off, and when that happens, it'll be the town of Lisbon paying that rental. So there's going to be some cost there. And then that $50,000 number would assume a November ballot. If that ballot were to take place and be successful in June, that number would be about $25,000. Any questions about the Public Works garage that I can answer?
Dean Willie, Lisbon Falls. I just had a couple quick questions. Do we even have an idea of the different costs for each one? ETTI, just a ballpark, ETTI building, and the was it Longchamps? And also, is, for the bond, the $1.1 million, is that including the $300,000 check you're getting from the insurance company, or is the total cost an estimated $1.4 million?
The total cost would be $1.3 million, with $100,000 taking care of the issue of rent and converting the old burned-out building into a proper sand salt storage building. And I did not go back to the 1.1 versus 1.3. If you look at the property tax cards, and that was my guide for looking at the value of the buildings, and then I had to, and here's where I don't want to anger the owners of these buildings or get into trouble, but the assessed value of the ETTI building is about $1.5 million. The assessed value of the Longchamps building is about half that. So I believe that if the town wanted to focus on a partnership with ETTI and the school to purchase that building, the bond issue ought to be $1.3 million, not $1.1. I believe that at $1.1 million, that would be more than sufficient to purchase the Longchamps building.
Yes, good evening. My question is, ETTI or Longchamps, are either of those recipients of a TIF, revolving loan fund, or any other obligations that they've already gotten from the town? And how would that be factored in on the purchase of the property? Thank you.
That one's above my pay grade. Does anyone know the answer to that? Both? They both have TIFs.
That's not right.
No, yeah, there's no TIF on the ETTI.
No.
Okay, ETTI's current facility does not have a TIF. Longchamps apparently does. Larry, can you help us out here?
That's not right.
Okay, correct me.
Kelly Park has a TIF that has been approved by the state and is an active TIF. Longchamps has a TIF that's approved by the state, but it is inactive and has never been activated. So Kelly Park has an active TIF, but Longchamps doesn't. But both of them have a TIF that is approved by the state. Now, how you want to word that, I don't know.
The current EPDI building, I believe, does not have a TIF.
No, just Kelly Park.
Right, we're talking about the EPDI building that exists now.
Right.
Does not have a TIF on it, even though the one next to it that is now.
So the current ETI building does not have a TIF, but
Right.
the park, which has not been developed, apparently does.
So the ETCI building, I know you talked about the best plan would be maybe to go after that. Let me ask you, do you have a rough idea, I know it's really early, of what the consolidation savings would look like, or is that just way too early to tell?
It's way too early to tell.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, this has all evolved in the last week to 10 days. And I've had all I could do is just to get to meetings to be sure that we were safe having this discussion this evening.
Dot Fitzgerald again. There are wants, and there are needs, and there is return on investment. I'm a longtime realtor, and return on investment is really, really important. I have been in the ETTI building. We were having Positive Change Lisbon meetings there. I haven't been all through it, but it is a remarkable building. It is well-built, well-maintained, and it would serve, I can see that it would serve many needs and would have a return on the investment. I don't know what the heating costs are, but I have a feeling that we would have really significant heating savings with that building compared to what we have now. The town office is running out of space. The police department is running out of space. If the fire department was able to move into that building, the fire chief would have an office there. That would leave his office available for use for some other department. I think that, again, challenge all of the department heads to really, really, and the town council and the finance commission department, really scrutinize their budget, look for savings, see what you can find for savings, and I think that all of this can be paid for without any tax increases by really, really looking over the budget.
On the heating, something I did ask Mr. Kelly about and can't answer. It is natural gas, and it has overhead radiant heating. Please don't ask me what that means.
I just have two questions, and I may be ignorant to the topic, but the fire that took place, did we not have insurance on the fire truck?
We did.
We did.
The plow truck.
Oh, I'm sorry, the plow truck, we did.
Then why wouldn't the insurance pay for the new truck instead of the 80 grand that was in the budget?
Because you can only buy insurance on that type of vehicle on a cash value, not on a replacement value. Yeah, the first thing I did was discuss this with the insurance company, and then other insurance companies. Insurance companies will only insure emergency vehicles on a replacement value, and a plow truck is not considered an
On an
emergency
actual
vehicle.
cash, not a replacement.
Actual cash. Now, I should tell you, if you care to hear, but the initial offer was $24,000. I mean, it's a 12-year-old truck with 90,000 miles on it. We found that totally unacceptable, and if any of you are in the insurance industry, you know how it works. They make an offer, you say no, and...
I do work in the insurance
Okay,
industry.
well,
That's why I'm asking.
well, and what you hope is that when you make the offer, they say yes. We said no, and we kept saying no, and we finally ended up proving to them what we thought the value was by going and finding comparables around the state, and we used Howard Fairfield as the primary comparable. They had some trucks. So they gave us a letter saying if that truck was on their lot, and they were selling that truck today. Luckily, we had a sister vehicle, one that was identical to it, same year, roughly the same mileage. So they said, look, if that were on our lot, we'd be asking $50,000 to $60,000 for it. The insurance company came up with an offer of 48. I countered with, we'll take 48. We want the burned shell, because the burned shell has a $30,000 body on it that we can reuse. And the insurance company agreed.
Okay. So the $80,000 that's in the budget, are you factoring in the roughly 50 that you already got, so it's like 130 to
Yes.
get a good solid plow truck?
Yes. Yeah, again, I hate to use the word Freeport, but 2 years ago, just about the time I left Freeport, we went out to bid for a plow truck, fully equipped. The lowest bid was $179,000.
So my second question was regarding the building. Did we not have a replacement cost on the building, or as a town, you're not allowed to, like you can with a traditional homeowner's policy?
We actually would have replacement cost on the building. However, the insurance company, based on the extent of the fire, would not declare it as a total loss. So all they're willing to do is restore it to the state it was in before the fire.
But as you try to replace things, and like you said, things break, that becomes more money that they are required to pay, which doesn't come out of the town.
Oh, exactly. If at the end of the day, the insurance company has to simply repair the building, the estimated repair costs are $294,558. I know that because we talked about that before I left the office. However, the insurance company is still on the hook for any unseen problems that we incur. And they've told me the industry standard could be about 20% higher than the current estimate. So if that's the case, and the town decides, the voters were to approve a bond issue that would allow us to move forward with any of those options, we would then go back to the insurance company and begin negotiating, because they would have to increase the $300,000 to a more reasonable number, assuming that were repaired, that we would find some problems that can't be uncovered by the naked eye until things are removed from walls and so on.
Did we get our own independent people to go assess the damage and all that?
We did.
We did, okay. And the other question would be on the actual bond where we might buy Kelly Park, or it's not Kelly Park, it's ETTI, right?
Right, exactly, the building.
The owner of ETTI has been more than gracious with anything and everything he's ever done for youth sports in his town. He donated roughly somewhere between $100 and $150 grand last year to help out the community and the sports complex that we're building. My fear would be, we buy his building, the building is absolutely beautiful. What are we doing? We just lost a very good ally and a very proud business owner in the town. Is the plan, not that we're sort of kicking him out, but we buy his building, he moves his business elsewhere, and we lose all that tax revenue and all the goodness that comes from that owner.
He's moving his business to Kelly Park, which is the former Dragon and Sand Pit. He wants to relocate there and stay in town, but it's a site where he can expand and have more room, because at his current site, he's maxed out his acreage. So he wants to stay in town, but build a new facility and be bigger than he currently is.
It's a win-win.
Yes, it would be a win-win.
That'd be beautiful. I've heard rumors that if we buy him out, he's leaving town, which would be a huge loss from a revenue standpoint and tax base, but also for the owner that's bent over backwards for...
You're absolutely right. It would be a huge loss. When I sat down with Scott a couple of days ago and had a discussion, his comment to me was, this would be my opportunity to begin developing
Kelly Park.
Kelly Park. And he made it clear that he fully intended to build a new facility in Kelly Park.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any more questions or comments?
Hi, I'm retired, and I live in Lisbon, too. One thing that was brought up tonight, I hear about this Longchamps and this Kelly Park thing there. What you're doing to the people like me there, you're getting us all way up. What's going on here? Get your act together. If you want to get Kelly's Park there, go get it. Don't fool around and say Longchamp and then bring it to this. This is getting awful confusing, and it's going to get out in the town that way. There's already rumors, somebody Kelly moving out of town. If you're going to have a bond for 1.3 million or whatever it is, get it there. We know you got to have a highway garage, but it's going to make us how we feel about these other bonds too. Let's be reasonable about this. You got to have something, but get it out there. Don't get all this stuff all over the place.
Can you state your name for the record, sir?
Robert DeWitt, 77 Webster Road.
Thank you.
Robert, I couldn't agree with you more.
Roger Cody, Lisbon Falls. I highly agree with what was just said, and I'd just like to say that I think that we should eliminate the Longchamp one, look to the ETTI building. It is what we need. It would bring us into the future as far as working with the school, police, fire, and then we will be at a place that can put this to bed. We've heard about town garages now long enough, and I think everybody would agree that it's time to put it to bed. And I'd like to take this split second to thank Mr. Green, Mr. Olmsted. You people are a breath of fresh air to this community, and you're doing remarkable. This room is silent. That means you have the attention of the crowd. That is the difference that we haven't had, and it's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Brief clarification. The ETTI building is located in the industrial park where the Public Works Department and the transfer station is located. The Kelly Park is located up in Lisbon, near the Lewiston town line. There are no buildings there as yet. I can see that if ETTI builds a nice building there, that there'll be other businesses, whatever, that will be looking to move in there. Once that park is starting to be developed, we should start seeing tax revenue from it.
If there are no further comments or questions, for the sake of moving forward, we have more bonds to discuss. We'll move on to the next item. Okay.
The next item is the consideration of a $5,700,000 order provided for the issuance of general obligation securities for the Lisbon High School new gymnasium.
Good evening. A couple of handouts that you'll need that you hopefully will find informative is the first one is we created another flyer for this evening, and inside there's a number of figures that will show you, it'll define to you what the mill rate is, how we calculated that. It will calculate what the potential impact is for the next two. I'm going to talk about, if it's okay, I'll do the gymnasium and the track at the same time. It'll also talk to you about what the actual impact is, and there's a difference. And for those who have been to the informational meetings, one of the things I've shared is that because the interest, as you heard earlier, somebody was asking about what happens to that interest, because interest is reduced on the bonds, we currently have two. If we were to add these two new bonds, the actual impact on you locally is a lot less than what the impact would be for going forward with these two bonds, and I'll explain that. Also, I handed out this evening, there is a spreadsheet. And on the spreadsheet, there are the four bonds. The two on the left, the gymnasium and the track, are the ones that we're proposing. The two on the right, the LCS bond, is for this building. That was in 2004. In 2010, the high school, QSCB, which is a qualified school construction bond, that's the one on the far right. Now, I've highlighted the numbers that are in yellow are the numbers that I'll be speaking about this evening, and those are the actual impacts. That's new money that would be that will be part of the taxes for next year and the year after. So those are the numbers I'll be talking about. These are what the actual, what that impact would be. Just a little bit of history, and of course, we've taken a lot of slides off of this. All of our informational meetings will be available online. We recorded them, so you'll hear, if you want to hear a real extensive overview of the gymnasium and the track proposal, we actually had an informational meeting on the 9th. If you were interested, you can watch that. And we also had another informational meeting that we talked about our strategic educational plan and, of course, the gymnasium bond. So we've actually been working on this for quite a while. But on March 10th, 2014, the Lisbon School Committee voted 4-1 to move forward with these bond referendums for both the construction of a new gymnasium and renovations to the existing track. You'll see renditions outside, renderings of the drawings of what it would look like. We've been working on this since 2010. It was part of our building application for the high school when we applied for that. So we're actually at the schematic design phase. Those are drawings of what it would look like. We're actually at the point now where we're putting together what the actual locker rooms, restrooms, concession areas, all that piece would be underneath. And that's a big part of the cost. The actual gymnasium, the addition to the high school, is around $3.7 million. However, the actual groundwork and the driveways, all those pieces, all the smaller pieces are part of a big part of the cost. One of the things, the overview of what I'll be talking about tonight, the things that impact the reason why we're asking for this now is because we have a guaranteed performance contract. This is just one of the other pieces that we're working with the town on with consolidation. And quite honestly, Dale and I have probably had just a few hours of conversations, and we're planning on meeting next week. I think it's 22nd. There's a lot of options. We have a lot of good ideas that we've been bouncing back and forth. But one of the things we work with the town is a guaranteed performance contract. And what that is we would be able to get a number of pieces done to both the town, your infrastructure, stuff that he's talking about, some of the infrastructure work we could get done for the town and the school, and it's paid for through the savings, the energy savings, whether it's transferring over from oil to natural gas, etc. So that's a big piece of this project because, as you may or may not know, we've been working on the high school for a number of years, and we're actually on Phase 2, Part 3, which is fixing the heating units in the 1950 wing, the top and bottom. So that's a big piece of this because I'm hoping to get the majority of that paid for through this guaranteed performance contract without asking for any new money from the communities. Going to talk about what the local budget increase, it's actually what's in that flyer. I'll share those numbers with you. The bond interest impact is what I shared with you. Because there's money coming off the books, it actually reduces the amount of new money that would have to be raised next year and the year after and then years after that. And that gives you the whole timeline of the 20-year bond for the gymnasium, 10-year bond for the track, and then what's left, I believe there's 10 years left, and then there's 8 years left of the high school. There's been a lot of questions asked. There's some clarifying questions that people pointed out to me, and then I'll give you a summary, in our opinion, of why we're asking to move forward with these projects now. The biggest piece, as I mentioned before, one of the biggest pieces is that in January 2014, we worked together with the town. We went through the interview process. We hired Siemens Industries to come in and look at our facilities and then bring us proposals for renovations or upgrades. What's going to happen is in May, they're hoping by May 1st, they should be able to bring us a number of proposals and say, if you run natural gas to this building, you're going to save $25,000 a year. If you change the light bulbs, something simple, there's really a lot of energy savings in lights, believe it or not, but just changing lights in this room or some other room, you can save this amount of money. So the project is this: if you spread it out over the course of 10 years, you would be eligible to pay for that project through the savings that you're going to encounter. If they tell us that we're going to save $50,000, and we only save $40,000, the guaranteed piece of this is that they would pay us the difference. They'd write us a check for the $10,000 difference. So there's absolutely no new money involved. We wouldn't pick any projects that we couldn't save money on, and in the meantime, you'd be able to get a lot of your infrastructure pieces, at least within the buildings, different buildings, done through the savings. So there's no new money to the taxpayers. So that's a big part of why we're moving forward with this proposal. Now, looking at the gymnasium, the 20-year bond, the local budget increase, that's what's in your flyer. In 2014, 2015, you'd only pay, there's an interest and there's a small amount that you would pay. The total amount that you would actually pay for the gymnasium in 2014, 2015 is $161,481, which equals about 0.35 mils or $35 per 100,000. Now, I've mentioned that multiple times this evening, but in this flyer in the center, you'll see what the mill rate is, and that's based on the 2013-14 mill rate. So 1 mill in this town is equal to $460,000 of money raised locally. So it equals $100 per $100,000 valuation. And if I didn't explain that right, but that's, so when I say mill rate, that's how we calculate that. In 2015, the local budget increase, new money would be $455,459 for this project, and that is the most. If you look on the spreadsheet, you notice that's the highest amount, and then each year it decreases, but that particular amount would equal 0.99 mils or $99 per $100,000 valuation. Remember those numbers, because when I get to the interest piece, you'll see that those numbers are going to drop, because right now I'm telling you that next year it would be $35 and then the following year it would be $99 just for the gymnasium. Now, for the track, it would be in 2014, 2015, the local budget increase would be $4,687 or 0.01 mils or $1 per $100,000. In 2015, 16, it would be a local increase of $58,775 or 0.13 mils or $13 per 100,000. Now, one of the reasons we went for a 10-year bond on this, just because, for me personally, when you look at finances, you don't want to be paying, even though it makes the payments lower, if you drag bonds out, then you obviously would pay more in interest. And so one of the things we felt this was doable, but again, you could stretch that out, but I would not recommend it. I think there's other bonds and stuff that are stretched out, something you want to look at, and in the future, as Dale mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that when you're doing these things, you're doing them the smart way. So we did a 10-year bond for the track and a 20-year bond for the gymnasium. So remember those numbers. It would be $1 per 100 next year, $13 per 100 the following year. Now, where the bond interest impact comes into play is when you look at this spreadsheet, you will see that the numbers that are highlighted in yellow, the numbers I just gave you for both the track and the gym for 2014-15 and 15-16. If you look all the way to the right, you're going to see that each year you'll notice that there's interest, and there will be interest coming off those bonds as well. But there's interest coming off the bonds on both the main municipal bond and also the qualified school construction bond, and annual savings of anywhere between $18,000 to $34,000 per year. And if you look at that, some of the years it's even more. But what you want to look at is on the total budget amount in 2013-14, which is the next to last column, you'll see that for next year, or actually this year, we have $1,152,000 in that line, and what would happen is if we combine the two projects, it would actually go up by a total, because of the reduction in interest, of $132,121. And then the following year, it would actually be $329,763. And that is on this sheet here. That'll tell you what the final tax increase. Remember, I asked you to remember the numbers. The original was $99 for the track next year, $35 for the gym, so it's $36. The actual impact would be $29 for next year with them both combined, and then and that's because of this interest coming off the books on these bonds. The other piece is for 2015-16 at $329,763. It would actually be $72 per 100 for both projects combined. And that's a result of, again, of the interest that keeps coming off the books in regard to that. Now, one of the things that I mentioned in the public informational meeting is that you can have a prepay, because I was looking at it, like, what do we do with that money? Can we take that money and roll it into one of the other bonds and pay them off early? Because if you did that, if you look, basically you could pay that 20-year bond off in 17 years, I believe, if you could roll the savings into another bond. The problem is that we would have to go out, we would have to offer our bonds out to the public, we'd have to hire a financial consultant, we'd have to look, probably, the banks like to know, if they're going to invest $5.7 million, they want to know what they're going to get in return, and so it's not as easy to go out and get a prepaid bond, but it is doable, so we'd have to look at that. And what they said was, a bank would offer a prepaid bond at a higher interest rate. But if you're going to pay off a bond early, it may be worth it for us to look at that and possibly open these up to the public to see if we can get that prepay language put in there. Because then if you can take that savings and put it into a bond and pay it off 3 or 4 years early, you're talking, close to, $100,000, $600,000, $800,000 savings. Again, I've talked to our attorneys. They told me that it's possible, but there's a lot of steps that we have to do. We have to make it public. It's almost like having shares. You have to offer it to the public, and then banks have to buy it, and then they're going to offer you an interest rate or whatever, so you have to weigh out. The school is actually in a position where we are getting, we're qualifying for interest or bonds that are very low interest rates, anywhere between 0, 1%, and 2%. So we're actually in a good spot. That's one of the reasons that I'll share why we're asking to do this particular piece now. But again, the spreadsheet, the trifold, has some of the information that I'm sure you're wondering, and I'll be answering questions here in a second. Some clarifying questions. Why a June referendum? We've been working on this project for a number of years. We are ahead of our original plan. But we also know that we have a budget validation. Our budget has to be voted on every single year, and we have that referendum tentatively scheduled for June. What we would like to do is, instead of going out and having another referendum, which costs anywhere between $3,500 plus, we have a June referendum. We could move forward with this, if approved this evening, put it out to referendum, and then we could go through our building plan. And as I've mentioned to the community, that the track takes about 12 weeks, I believe 12, 14 weeks to build. The gymnasium could be ready for the graduating class of 2015, as long as I had a few snow days. If I needed to build in a few snow days during the school year, we could possibly have that graduation then. But I talked to one advisor, and I'm pretty sure that they probably would hold off, even if it was a little bit late in construction, to be the first class to graduate here in Lisbon. In quite a while. The other piece is, well, you're going to ask for these 2 bonds now, and then you're going to be asking for another bond for the Performing Arts Center. And we haven't really talked about the Performing Arts Center because we believe that the current gymnasium, that's where this is coming from, the current gymnasium would then be turned into Performing Arts Center because it has a stage. What we would do is, we wouldn't ask for any new money. We'd do it with money that we're using, what we would have in our budget, whether it was $5,000 or $50,000, we could do our own work internally. And I also believe strongly, and I know other people agree as well, that if you take the basketball hoops and stuff out of that gymnasium, turn it into a legitimate performing arts center, that you're probably going to be eligible for a lot of grants. And somebody may step in there and give you a bunch of money and do that work for you. You just have to take the athletic piece out of there and put in seat and stuff like that we can all do ourselves. So we haven't even mentioned performing arts since the very, very beginning of this, and that was the original plan. Was when we were looking in 2010, they had recommended converting the Performing Arts Center, which was like $2.something million. Quite honestly, with all the politics and the time and effort that I've put into this particular proposal, I don't want to come back and do another one. So if you're asking if the school department's going to be coming to you for more bonds, there's no plans, no short-term or long-term plans to go through this again. This is something that we do have a lot of energy and excitement about. But again, the performing arts piece is not part of this. We'll do that on our own. The last clarifying question that people have asked is, why can't we wait for state funding? We've applied every year that they've had the building applications at the state. There's very limited money. One of the things that we had to do, we were placed on probation for our accreditation. We did a lot of the work internally. We have another accreditation visit coming up next year, and we actually stayed, because every year that they open up the application process, new people or new school systems and new buildings can be added. So it doesn't matter, you just don't move up like you would think if they had a list. If they freeze the list, that's one thing, but we worked our way up to 27th. They had the building application in 2010. We thought for sure that we were going to move up to the top 10. We stayed at 27th, and so we didn't move. They just approved, if you saw in the paper, they just said that they would approve 5 or 6 new projects when there's money. So those schools, even though they've been approved, currently there's no money. So that's one of the reasons. If you wait, and I know there's people in this room who have been here for a long time, and the gymnasium is something that they talked about. I've been here for 12 years. When I first came on board, there's a few things that they mentioned, was the fact that the front of the high school looked awful, the sign in front of the high school looked awful, and the gymnasium was the worst. So we fixed 2 out of 3 without coming to you for any bonds or new money, but I can tell you, I like to think we're good with money, but I can't pull the $5.7 million out of my hat to fix that gymnasium without your help. So that's a big part of why we're asking to do this now. We started planning this probably prior to 2010, but we have spent a lot of money and effort on looking at what that would look like. We're actually in the schematic design, the first phase of that. We would hope to be close to being shovel-ready by June, and that's one of the other reasons why we feel we're ready to move forward with this referendum for the community. Our school budget, although Dale just informed me he's going to take our savings and spend it on the town side, our school budget, our local contribution has actually decreased this year. So even if we kept all the money, we kept that 230 on our side or wherever, we still would, our budget, even with that, would still be a decrease as long as it stays, our subsidy money stays the same. That's another reason why we feel it's a good time for the school department to ask for this. The cost of the project keeps increasing, and the interest rates are good right now. So that project since 2010 has increased by almost $750,000. And it's just going to continue to do that. And I know it's no different than your projects. The longer you wait, the more it's going to cost. And if you don't get good interest rates, it's going to cost you even more. The guaranteed performance contract is playing a big part in this because that's going to free up the money that we've used to do all the renovations. I haven't mentioned it, but we've probably done close to $2 million worth of renovations by using stimulus money and money each year out of our budget to fix stuff at the high school. You can only see the biggest pieces where obviously the sign in the front of the building, the windows, all that stuff. You can see that, but you really should see all the stuff that's going on internally. You can't, there's classrooms and stuff that we changed, but it's the heat, and we changed it over to natural gas. There's already pipes run to do the HVAC in the new building. There's a lot of work that's been done over there, and this is the second time I stood in front of you and asked for a new money bond. The high school bond was actually paid for with savings from portables. We were spending almost $20,000 or $30,000 a year on those little portables that were next to the high school years ago. So we took the savings from that. We had an expiring bond coming off the books, rolled them into one, and that's where we came up with the $350,000. The budget validation is already in June, so we'd save money by going to validation in June. The other piece that I mentioned is that RSU 5 is in the process of going through they have a withdrawal working group, and they have about 200 total students, 160, I believe, are from Durham. One of the things is they've met with us. They asked us what we would do, like if their students had choice, or if we could handle all of their students. So at about between $8,600 and $8,800 per student, if we were to build a new gymnasium and not have to worry about our accreditation. And again, I don't want to say that that's going to fix it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to. we would be in the running to maybe pick up some of these students. Maybe not. They may want to go to a different school, I don't know. But any students, we've historically always had a number of students from Durham that attended until the unions was dissolved a number of years ago. As I mentioned before, why now? This is an investment. I mean, we talk about roads, you talk about infrastructure. I believe that on the school committee side, we have focused on all those things. We've done a lot of the work. We've done a lot of things with the money we've had. We're more than happy to work with the town and do some more consolidation. I would love to be able to share with you what's in my mind right now about the maintenance garage, because I probably thought about it just as much as I have some of this stuff. And I know that when we get to that point, we can share that information with you, you will be impressed. But this is an investment. That high school and the track, the high school is right in the center of town. If I put something on that sign, because I'm the one that actually does that actually changes that, if something's misspelled or the date's wrong, that is not posted more than a few minutes before somebody will call me or text me and tell me that I need to change the sign. That is the center of the community. The high school is where we're working. We're doing everything we possibly can. All the different revenue, when I talk about performing arts, if we were to get a grant for performing arts, you'd bring in revenue. You bring in revenue, we would go from being the one school who can't have a home playoff game to the only school that would be able to have regional playoffs, because we're going to build the 94-foot gym that the Maine Principals Association just moved to. So we would go from being the only school that can't to the only school that can. You start having events, cheering, all those things we could house, and graduation. That is actually one of the other pieces that was brought to my mind, or brought to my attention when I first became superintendent, is that people in this community were sick and tired of having graduation in other towns, and it does cost a lot of money. And I know that when we were in Thompson, we had air conditioning. There was almost a standing ovation when I mentioned that this is something we could probably have in Lisbon at some point. So, there's never a good time, but quite honestly, when you look at the numbers, like I do, there's probably never a better time to start thinking about these things and making an investment in your community, in your town, because if you invest in it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. That is true. And the image and the projection that this is going to be for the rest of the world, rest of the state, is that Lisbon is doing something about it instead of just letting it fall apart. And I think that's why we're here tonight, is because we spent too much time just letting things fall apart and not fixing things. So that is why, and I hope members of the town council that you give us the opportunity to move this forward to a referendum vote and let the people vote on these items, because I've said it all along, it doesn't matter if it's in June, if it's in November, if it's going to raise taxes, people in this town will go out and they will vote. And they will tell you one way or the other. They may not stand up here this evening and tell you that they don't agree with it on the microphone, because just the way that the atmosphere is.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Green. I did a little bit more research because I have attended two of the meetings regarding this proposal. And one thing I went to was the U.S. Department of Education regarding, I'm assuming because of the basketball, the gymnasium and the track, that it's an athletic type of endeavor. The results aren't very positive on, if we're going to invest $5.7 million in the gym and then another probably $1 million in the track, only 1 in 16,000 high school athletes actually get a professional career in sports. Now, as you posted, and I thank you for your honesty, there was an earlier slide, that we have a C-level academic rating, and that has to do, I understand, of course, with standardized testing, because our students are much better than that. I am absolutely convinced of that. However, when you're dealing with standardized testing, you don't see the full value rated of a student. But since we are at a C-level, and you do want to attract people in, my concern is that maybe we should focus more upon the academic part before we go into the athletic part, because we're not going to be able to get these, as you say, invest in the community. We're not going to get a return on investment for one student out of 16,000 to actually get a professional career, to pay taxes later on, and support this bond proposal. And no offense, but it appears that bonds never stop. They just keep coming. And I don't mean to laugh. It's not funny, because my taxes went up quite a bit, too. And everyone is on whether we like it or not, we're on a fixed income, because our salaries don't go up 2 or 3% every year. Our health insurance isn't being paid by the taxpayers. It isn't being subsidized by taxpayers. We have to pay it out of our wages. So we're not in a position to be able to do these things, but we are in a position to pay our taxes so we can get our kids educated, our students educated, so they can be successful in the future. So my concern is, maybe slow down. And I know everybody wants to hurry, get that money, get that bond, get, but we need to get the kids to a level, academic level, so they're successful in the world to be competitive.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey, that's 2 minutes.
I'm glad you said that, because actually I had some people do some research, and the numbers that you pulled for the last informational meeting, if you compare our high school to the other high schools in Androscoggin County, we're actually in the top 3 or 4 in all of our categories. Now, again, our academics aren't where we want them to be, but overall in the state of Maine, there are very few high schools that actually meet the state average. And when you start comparing how much we're paying per student to what they're paying, if the community wanted to put the extra 1.5 or 1.2 or 1.5 million into our budget to get us up to those numbers, I probably could do a lot. I could offer a lot more for the kids. We do offer, in my opinion, a lot of stuff for the kids. As far as the professional athletes, that's not why we're building the gymnasium. We're building it to bring in the community. We're building it to demonstrate, or to bring in other opportunities and revenue. And then again, overall, the academics, if you look at our SAT scores for last year, that particular class, their scores were lower than the years prior. However, if you look at what they did from grade 6 on, they actually showed progress for all those years. So that's what we focused on. We try not to compare apples to oranges or ourselves to the other school systems, but that C grade, that's a bell curve. So that means that out of the 200 and something schools or whatever in the state, so many are going to be A's, so many are going to be F's, same amount are going to be B's, same are going to be D's, and a whole bunch are going to be C's. It doesn't matter what that is. So look at the other, I know that you're upset with the way our scores look, but I wouldn't put those out there if I didn't think we were doing better than other systems. And I can defend that. So trust me, we created a new educational plan this year so that if any of us leave, the people coming in, we had 3 new administrators, 50% of our administrators came in this year. If new people come in, they can see where we're going and what we're doing. And quite honestly, we have been referred to as the diamond in the rough in the state of Maine for a lot of the stuff that we're doing for our kids. So I appreciate your criticism, and I can assure you we're doing everything we possibly can to help academics. We're not here to raise professional athletes.
Thank you.
Do I get 4 minutes since it's both? I'm just kidding. I had a prepared statement, but I also had a couple...
I'm sorry, Mr. Willie, another member of the school committee would like to comment, and if you could hold on for just another moment. Thank you.
Good on you.
Sorry, Mr. Willie. I actually would like to respond back to Ms. Berry as I did in our first informational night. I completely understand where you're coming from on the academic piece, but I want to reiterate what I did the first night, which was I have the privilege, we are all on various subcommittees, and I am the lucky one that gets to be on the curriculum committee. So as far as the academic piece goes, the reason why you probably are not hearing a lot about it in these kind of meetings is because we are not asking you for money for those academic pieces. That money is already in our budget, and we are using it to better our curriculum every year. Mr. Green, Ms. Wilmot has invested a lot of time, a lot of energy. We have had outside professionals come in to help guide us to better our curriculum within our schools. We have incredible teachers on board over the past 3 years. We've had a great turnover. We've gotten some incredible new teachers with great ideas. And we are improving. Just like everything, it's a process, and when we get to a certain point, the state of Maine changes things on us a lot of times, so we have to readjust. But it's a constant move forward on our academic end, and I think as parents, if you've had children in the schools as long as I have seen a huge difference in the past 7 years. So, and we're getting better and better. It's just something that's kind of behind the scenes right now, because we're not asking you for money to help improve that. We've had a huge future search, which unfortunately I wish you could have been a part of, because I think you would be in a better place right now as to where we are academically if you had been a part of that. but we did invite the community in. It was a huge turnout, and we asked people, where are the problems? What do you think we need to fix internally? What do we need to better for our schools as far as our curriculum goes, our students? Where are we going to move forward for them? And it's been ongoing for over a year now. We have, that large group has downsized so we can work very strategically and very concentrated on different areas in our academic plan, and we are really going places. We do have a plan. It's not just capital improvements, but the reason why you are not constantly hearing about that is because we're not asking you for the money like we are in this, but we are constantly investing in our students' education. Thank you.
Can you wait until a little bit later, perhaps a response? I'm sorry, if you could wait. And I know there are other people who want to speak also, Mrs. Berry.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, I had a prepared statement, but I also had a comment. Mr. Green went over some numbers, and last time Ms. Berry brought up that we were in F and things like that, so I also went back and I looked at the same information, and what I found is that when I compiled all the numbers of Androscoggin County, of the graduation rates and things like that, I put them into a spreadsheet, and I figured out that by combining those numbers, Lisbon is actually number 1 in the county for graduation rates. I don't know if anybody knows that. So, thank you. And I have a prepared statement, but I'm hoping I'm going to get through it. I put it down because there's a lot of things in here, and I can't remember everything. I got nervous, and my heart's going, ugh. But anyway. It says, why are the projects a good idea for Lisbon? And I said, I thought about that, and I said, I'm not going to say it's about time because everybody's doing that. It's not a good time. Doesn't make sense. But although I do feel that the projects are overdue, there are reasons that they're needed and would be a great benefit to an investment in town. For me, a lot of the need comes down to safety. In July 2009, NEASC pointed out that there are multiple issues in the existing gym that could result in serious injury. Most notably are the stairs on both sides of one end of the gym and the existing bleachers that are extremely close to the playing area. As for the track, self-explanatory, but the holes, ruts, and debris and dirt on the dirt circle have and will continue to cause various types of injuries. These facilities, I feel, leave the school and the town open for eventual lawsuits. These are structural and playing surface issues and cannot be resolved without construction. Granted, we've been extremely lucky to this point, but serious injuries will happen. It's just a matter of time. As for the reasons I thought why these projects would be a great community investment, the gym like this could be used, as Mr. Green pointed out, a multi-purpose facility that will not only serve as a gymnasium where Lisbon can host a multitude of community sporting events that will attract people to our town and create much-needed foot traffic for local businesses, but as a community center, as Mr. Green pointed out, a larger auditorium that can be used by everyone, not just a select few. The 1 in 16,000 comes to mind. Just this year, we had the class of 2014 has to rent or lease or whatever. The Colisee, they pay, I think it's between $3,000 and $4,000 just for that.
Mr. Ray, your time is up, but could you finish your thought, please?
Going down, I say that I just think that the town should have a chance to vote on it. Tonight, we're not saying yes or no, we're just saying give it to the town. It's not going to be slanted in any way when you go to the vote. If everybody has a chance to come out. I mean, they also have the chance for absentee vote. Everybody has a chance to vote. That's all we're asking for tonight. And I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Jenna. I'm a senior at Lisbon High School, and I just turned 18, so I will soon be a voter. I'm not a taxpayer, but my mom is a taxpayer, and she's not thrilled with how high her taxes are, but she does support this, and I will support this. coming from Lisbon, I wasn't really confident applying to colleges this year. Admittedly, I felt like I might have a lower hand chance, like coming from a school like this. I've always really cared about my academics, and I've tried really hard to do the best that I can, and I'm very surprised and glad to say that I will be attending Georgetown University next year. I was accepted to 7 of the 9 schools that I applied to, and I didn't expect to really have any options. So it is possible to get good grades at Lisbon, and it is possible to make the most out of your experience here. I'm an athlete, but I have no talent or expectation to pursue my athletic career, but I do think that this gym will benefit students more than just those planning for athletic aspirations. I think that in Lisbon what we really need is a sense of mentality that we can do good things, and that a morale that our school and our community cares about us, because I think coming into the school when I was a freshman, I didn't have, there's a common joke, look at the school building we're in, why should we try hard? We come from this place, where is this going to take us? But it can take us farther. Of course we have to apply ourselves, but in order to get my peers and the student body, the underclassmen to apply themselves, they need to feel a sense of school pride, and I think that a gym and a track will definitely give this to them. Certainly we could invest more in academics, that would be awesome if we could do more of that in that area, but in order for the kids to do better academically, I think that they need to have the mentality and the school pride, the pride in their community, and the belief that they're cared about and that they can do something. So I would encourage the town council to give us the opportunity to vote.
Thank you.
Doug Sauter, Lisbon Falls. I've been in this town since I was a month old, and I graduated from this high school, and I'm back here living in town. My kids are in school here, and they're not going to go on to professional careers in athletics, but they participate in sports about teamwork and pride and character, and all those will enhance their abilities as they go on to college, as they prepare in the real world to get a job. And this town needs the right to decide if it should go on to the new gym, new track, let the town decide and do it as soon as possible, because it should have been done years ago. It's an embarrassment. I coached for 14 years in the school, and I would stand by the gym door as the visiting team would come in, and I'd look on their faces, and they'd be, oh my word, this place is awful. And it's gotten worse. I've been on coaching high school basketball for 5 years, and it's gotten even worse. It's filthy, and we talk about pride. And Jenna, thank you for talking about pride, because there is no pride in that facility. There's no pride in that gym. And fortunately, my kids, they're on the honor roll, and they participate in sports and the first team all conference. And it's all about pride. And I asked my daughter, do you have pride in that school? No. And here she is, high honors, first team all conference. Do you have any pride in your school? No. I think it says it all right there. Don't want to take pride in your school, not just by, luckily she has that intrinsic drive to do well, but wow, we got a new facility, take pride in your school, and it's going to affect everybody. Everybody takes PE, they're in there taking their classes. It's not just for the high school teams. Every kid has to take PE by state mandate. So every kid will be in that gym. The track team will use that track. PE will use that track. And the townspeople will use that track. We need it. We need it now.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Yes, I'd like to just make a comment on the gym itself. Do we need a new gymnasium here? Absolutely. I've been there. I had the opportunity to watch some of the kids play basketball. I thoroughly enjoyed watching these kids play, their heart, their desire, but getting there, I went to one of the games, didn't get there soon enough. I had to sit up on the stage to watch the game. There's no argument. I think everybody in this room would agree that we need a new gymnasium here in this town. The problem that I guess that I have with it is the cost of it. I truly believe that this could be built cheaper. It could be less of a burden to the taxpayers. There are people here in the town that are on fixed incomes that they can't afford it. I saw the display out there. It's a beautiful building. It's state-of-the-art, no doubt about it. This is a state-of-the-art building, top of the line, and I can see that. But I would ask the school to maybe downsize this a little bit, maybe cut the budget a little bit on what they want to build, and make it so the tax burden isn't so high. That's just my take on it. As far as the time to vote, we looked at the stats on when people come out and vote in June, when people come out and vote in November. I don't care what the issue is, it shows right across the board, it's always less in June. There are people I've actually talked to never even know there was voting being done in June. People know to vote in November. It's just when elections are, people know that. Some people don't know about June elections. I would prefer to see a different number on the project, and I would prefer to see it done in November. That's just my take on it.
Good evening, my name is Stacy Harriman, I live in Lisbon. I have not attended any of these meetings because I wear my heart on my sleeve, and in response to you, it just hit the nail on the head what I wanted to say, is then let the taxpayers decide, that's all we're asking. That's it.
Roger Cody. The one thing that I think that we can't get away from, there are a lot of us in this community that would say, you know, these are pretty good deals. I mean, through the years, I've seen some that are nowhere near as good and affordable as they are right now. But we've also got to take into consideration that our roads in this town are deplorable. We're pounding our school buses over these roads daily. Our police vehicles, our town vehicles, our personal vehicles. This is something that's got to be looked at. And I would encourage the council to look at departments in this town other than the school. I feel that we are wasting a lot of money in other departments that could be scaled way back, that don't need to. And I think we all know what department I'm talking about. That can be looked at for some savings, and that money can probably be put into other things, like paving the roads and what have you. But as far as the gym is concerned, the new garage, the track, this is all stuff. Where do we want to invest, and how much do we want to invest in our community? We have let it run down to the point of, it's terrible right now. You drive through Lisbon, it's terrible. And I would like to see us start to do something. And unless we take that bite and do it, it's only going to get worse. It's like a house that you never take care of. Eventually, the roof will fall in on you. You've got to start spending some money in our community pretty soon, whether we like it or not. And that's something we haven't done. And I would hope that the council would work with us, and the townspeople would work with everybody, and I know it's going to hurt a little bit, in probably some cases worse than others, but I think we've got to bite the bullet and start putting some money into our community.
Thank you, Mr. Cody.
My name is Dave Norton. I grew up in this town, was born in this town. I've been listening to this way back in the 70s about the school. The school was passed, the high school, back in the early 70s. It was passed, a new high school. But somehow, the school board didn't accept it. And I don't know if there's anybody in here, this room, that knows about that, remembers that. And this town has been backwards, and I don't care what you say, from 70s, 80s, 90s, and now. The kids have waited long enough. I don't want my taxes going up anymore either, but that gym is terrible. It's not, for the SPA, you can't play there. Why do you want to send your kids out of town and let them go play somewhere else? People got that attitude. Oh, let them go play somewhere else. I had 3 boys on the track team at Lisbon High School. They won 20 conference championships, this high school has. I bet they have to play out of town. I never got to see them play, because I couldn't go to a meet here, because I worked. Only time I saw them play was when they were playing in the conference championship on a Saturday. I don't care, people can get mad at me, I never said anything before. I've got ridiculed back when I worked for Howard Rickett, because he was for the school system. People call my house, I sign a petition, they say, what are you doing that for? This town's like that, and it's about time it grew up and started taking their responsibility. My parents, my grandparents paid for this high school down here, but I'm not paying anything for the high school remodeling anything. We deserve a new gymnasium and a new track, and that's what I feel, that's where I'm feeling.
I would like to just add to that. Sir, I absolutely agree with you 100%. Yes, that place is run down. Yes, we do need it. I do see that, and I fully agree with it. I think the people ought to vote on it. I absolutely think the people should have the final say in this decision. All I'm saying is, why not ease the burden a little bit on taxpayers and downsize a little bit?
We want to come down from $5 million. How are you going to do it? What are you going to reduce?
I think if you look around, you see you could.
Order, please. It's not that I don't want the discussion, but we do need to keep order. Thank you.
My name is Tony Austin. I'm from Lisbon. Like many of the people in this room, I've lived here my whole life. For some reason, there seems to be the town versus the school. And it needs to change. It's ridiculous. It's the town of Lisbon. And we shouldn't be sitting here saying, well, I'm going to play politics because if I allow this to go through in June, it might pass, and that's not what I want. I want to wait because my statistics show if I wait until November, then I can stick it to them and they can't get it passed. And that's wrong. Have an investment in your community, in your town. Route 196 is the center of our town where the town office is in high school. I have 2 kids, one in 7th grade, one is a freshman in high school. Neither one of them play basketball, track, or wrestling. I personally will get 0 benefit out of this except going to enjoy their friends that are going to compete in those buildings. And for somebody to sit here and say that athletics in high school is based on, 1 out of 15,000 kids makes it, that's not what this is about. It's community, it's pride, it's leadership, it's developing kids to perform as one, as part of a team. And there are 2 kids, in case you didn't know it. There's one named Greg Moore, and there's another one named Jeremy Shorey that actually made it in professional sports. So we're above your statistics. Put the politics aside, move it to June, and move on.
Excuse me.
Vote.
Mrs.
They
Barry.
vote it up or down, we move on.
Please refrain from interrupting other speakers or speaking to them when it is not your turn. You will have another turn. Thank you.
We need industry, we need businesses, and when anyone is looking to move a business or an industry into a community, the first thing they look at is the schools. No, the second thing is the schools. As Mr. Olmsted said in a previous council meeting, they look at roads. Well, our roads are atrocious, but the second thing is schools. If we have a wonderful recreation department, we have a wonderful Lisbon Junior Athletic Department. We have all kinds of opportunities for kids, for the MTM Center it has something going on almost 24/7. We're a wonderful family community. If I was looking to move a business or an industry into a town, that's what I would look at. I would look at a family-friendly community. What do you have to offer for my family, for my children, for education, for extracurricular, for senior citizens? We have it all, and we need to start advertising it and promoting it.
Thank you, Mrs. Fitzgerald.
I am athletic. Jill Deniston, Lisbon Falls, and I am a teacher in our school district. My question is, can we take like just a hand vote of saying, on the June ballot?
No,
We cannot?
not at this time, no.
Oh, I mean, just for your interest, since I already hear there's some, you don't do it that way.
Right.
So what happens if you, I mean...
No, that's not how it works.
Okay, explain how it goes in, please. Educate.
We're here for you to ask us questions and comments, and when we're finished, we may ask for a straw vote so that we can assess if we deem it necessary, but it is not for citizens to ask for that vote, it is for council to ask for
I'm not
that.
asking for a vote, I'm just kind of...
Okay,
you kind of
I understand, but we won't be doing that right now.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
You're up.
Hi, Laura Campbell, I'm a resident of Lisbon. Just in referral to Mr. Mentevie, you want to lower the budget that we're going to have for this gym, but is that going to make us outgrow it in 5 years and then it's useless? We need to build what we need to get into it and stay there for a while, rather than spend all this money and not be able to use it. And as far as going on a June referendum, I think the word's probably going to be out pretty good, so I think you're going to get a good turnout, and I think that we can manage to spread the word too, so it needs to get done.
Thank you.
I'm Lacey Donnelly from Lisbon Falls. I definitely think to put it on the June referendum and let people vote. And I think, like she said, the word is out, and I would just commend the school department and Mr. Green for sending out the mailings to everyone, putting it on the school reach, calling us personally on the, the phone system. Like, I mean, I'm like thinking at home, should I go, should I not go? Like, Comenda keep harassing me, I should go, And I think the town, like, if you're going to do anything with ETTI or whatever you're doing, you need to do the same work and learn from the school department, because a lot of people don't know what goes on in town. And just putting it up on the board, like the fireworks survey or something, I never heard about that till it was long gone. You do the same work, like learn from what they're doing and get people involved so that you can get the things done you want to get done too. It's really appreciated, and I think a lot of people want to do it, but they don't hear about it till it's too late. So get creative about the way you advertise it to people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Norman Albert, Lisbon Falls. I just kind of want to touch on a couple of things that people talked about. More importantly, I just want to talk, the young lady that came up and talked about Georgetown. She's going to Georgetown University. She talked about how students in her school, they go out of their way to try to excel and achieve. When they talk about pride in their school, they have none. It's the heart of the community. That's really what it is. It's the heart of the community. And we drive by it every day when we go to work, when we bring our kids to events. And it's one of the things that is the most prominent piece in our schools, in our town, pardon me. Think about the reverse. Driving into Lisbon from Lewiston, what's the first thing you run into? That traffic light where Graziano has been knocked down. That whole Main Street, which is demolished and looks disgusting. That's the first impression people they're driving from Lewiston into Lisbon get. We don't get the first impressions. That's the opportunities that we have. We don't have that opportunity when people come through Lisbon that way. We have a real opportunity here to start to show others, not just, we all know that we're proud where we live, even on days when we say, geez, why do we do this or do that? But at the end of the day, we have a chance to put a face on this community that not only is just pretty cosmetically, but will bring us revenue. Think about that. We will get opportunities for new people who have never thought of Lisbon as a place to do business, never thought of it as a place to live and bring their families. Children will have pride when they're here and they'll want to excel. And families that come in will want to contribute to the community. How many kids, after they graduate, and I hate to say this because I know you're going to go, but she'll go to Georgetown, she'll never come back to Lisbon. Why should she? When we see stuff like this. Don't fight. Tony hit it nail on the head. Why does it always have to be an adversarial relationship that we have? It doesn't have to be. We just need to get on the right frame. And it doesn't mean stalling until November either. I understand where you're coming from, and I don't point you out, Eric. You point that, you say let's scale it back some. Well, if we scale it back some, then it ensures it's going to get pushed off. We need to talk about it, and we need to vote on it. As a community, let's vote on it. Let's vote on it in June, see where we land, and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask any new speakers, new speakers to come forward, and then I promised Mrs. Berry a final word. But we will need to move forward. We do have to vote tonight, and we hope you will all stay for that vote. But anyone else who would like to speak, please come forward so we can see and we can time properly. Thank you.
Real quick, excuse me, my name is Neil Larochelle. I grew up in Bath, Maine. My father was a school principal for 30 years at an elementary school. Also played basketball at Morse High School. When growing up, I knew nothing of Lisbon. My mother's famous quote that I do remember is, there's a left armpit in Maine, and that's Belfast, and there's a right armpit, and that's Lisbon Falls. Don't mean to offend anybody for that, because I now live in Lisbon Falls for 11 years. My son was born 11 years ago. Why did I move to Lisbon Falls? Number one, obviously location, because it's close to my business in Auburn. It's close to my dad when he was alive in Bath. Number two was the beautiful school here at Lisbon Community School. I love this place. I thought that was a good spot for my son. He's now in 5th grade, going into 6th grade next year. He stole my thunder, Mr. Green. You build it, they will come.
Thank you.
A number of years ago, by the way, my name is Richard Main. I didn't grow up in Lisbon or Lisbon Falls, but I adopted Lisbon as my home. A number of years ago, the town voted to not proceed with a new building, and there was a lot of upset throughout the community that that question was even asked. Part of the reason was that the facility, it seemed like the school committee and the administration were not doing things to improve and maintain the facility at that time, and intentionally allowed the school facility to deteriorate so that the state had to do something and help us. There was a committee formed after Richard was, Mr. Green was, became superintendent, and a number of us were asked to be on the facilities committee. One of the things that a number of us almost demanded, we argued for, was before the community would do anything about a facility or an addition or anything else, the facilities committee or the school administration had to improve, bring up to code the current facility. We began asking questions, and Mr. Green worked on this tirelessly. There were things like the bathroom wasn't working off of the gymnasium. One of the bathrooms, they just locked it up because something was broken in it. Those kinds of things. Those kinds of things were repaired. They were fixed. The repairs that, most of the repairs that the New England Association of Schools and Colleges pointed out to us when we were put on probation included things like that. And so those things were repaired, those things were rebuilt. The heating system went down one winter. That was put in. The outside of the building, I complained about the painting on the lack of paint on the gymnasium. That was done. But they went throughout the entire building, and as a school administration, as a facilities committee, we said, we've got to finish the work inside first. That work has been done. The school committee has spent the monies. They have taken it out of the current budgets, and whatever monies that they could scrounge together without coming back to the town for more monies to do that work. now is the time that we had come to the conclusion that we need to ask the community to support a new gymnasium. It would be nice to say that a new gymnasium could be reduced to $1 million. That is just not possible with the requirements of OSHA, of the state school board, of all of the requirements, EPA requirements, all of the safety requirements. We've asked to have I was going to use the term plain Jane building, but we've asked to have the cost reduced as much as possible, so that it would be a building that we could be proud of. It would be new, but it would not be the Taj Mahal that you see in some school systems. And I think that we came to a pretty good conclusion on that. And so I would encourage you to really consider. I know that there are some that would say, well, let's wait until November and we can have everybody vote on it. Well, each of us, we've had that opportunity. We've gone through it several times. And I think that at this point, if we have the town vote on it in June, they can make the decision, do we want to go ahead with it, or do we not want to go ahead with it? Because time, money will increase in the future. And I would prefer not to have us wait. It's going to hurt me, because I'm going to be on a fixed income. And yet, I support it because it's not for me. It's for the kids who are in school now. It's the kids that are going to be coming, the children that are going to be coming. I shouldn't call them kids. They're children. They're young people who are going to be leading this community in 20 years. That is, if they don't move from another community. So I would encourage you to vote tonight to support a June referendum for both of those bond issues. Thank you.
I'm asking only for new comments at this time, new speakers.
Okay, I just want...
New speakers first, please. Any other new speakers?
She didn't talk on this yet.
On the school one? Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize, but we do have another hour to an hour and a half of council business to continue forward with after the hearing, so I don't want to short anyone. Just trying to move forward.
Okay, Lisa Levine again, and I think I made it kind of clear, I'm really against high taxes. I think that we have to look at this as a whole and not just the bond issues. I am unbelievably impressed with the information I've seen tonight and the amount of work that people have put in to justify the budget and return on investment and what we'll save to compensate to try and keep taxes down. I'm fully for having this voted on in June to see how it comes up, but I would really encourage the town to look as the town as a whole, to take pride in the town as a whole, see where to cut back, and protect your citizens by keeping taxes down. You know, to continue looking at all departments, as other people have said. But I am totally impressed with what I've seen tonight, and I would definitely say to put this to a vote. I think it's up to the citizens, but put the information out there for people to see it before the vote.
Thank you.
Thank you for a moment to have a rebuttal. Ms. Krosko, you said the school budget, now the school budget comes out of property taxes. Excuse me? Okay. The bonds produce additional burdens on the taxpayers because it has to come out of the property taxes of the taxpayers. Now, I address the council. It is historically accurate that a November vote, you will have a higher percentage of taxpayers come out to vote. I would urge strongly to have a November vote. That way, We'll also have more information perhaps on completion of the property appraisal that's still ongoing at this point, so people will have a better idea of what their taxes are going to be, and then the additional burden of the new high school, new track. We have a track, we have a gym. Now, I will say one more thing regarding the percentages of how my problem is with the academics. Now, you can do spreadsheets, there's so much stuff on the internet, but this is what was reported in the Greater Lisbon Ledger, page 14, on February 20th, 2014. High school honors was 18 of 118 enrolled, 18 were on high honors. Of the senior honor roll, there was 15, which that means 33 are really getting it, really getting a great education. But I'm worried about the 85 that are left over. That's where my numbers actually come from. I didn't go to the internet. I went to the local source to find out who's enrolled in high school, who's on honor roll, who's not on honor roll, and those 85 people, in my opinion, are in a danger zone for academically. Now, they may get a full scholarship to things. I would like all 85 to get a full scholarship. Believe me, I'm not against it. But my concern is, please, I urge a November vote to have a higher percentage of the taxpayers. They'll get more information to make a more informed decision, and maybe the property tax appraisal that's going on right now, they'll have more information.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry.
5-second comment? No, let's do. Half a minute, 5 seconds.
Hi, my name is James Harriman, Lisbon
Okay,
Falls.
just one, right, you can speak, and then Mr. Willie, you may speak because you've already asked. That will be all the speakers we have tonight. At this point, we are hearing a lot of people reiterating each other, which is wonderful, but we're not hearing new comments, so I'm going to keep it brief, and we're going to finish up the hearing after your comments.
Approach the council representatives. I have seen that the town garage has been put up for 4 times vote. It has been shut down 3 times. If you keep shoving something down somebody's throat, they're eventually going to eat it. The school board has come to you one time to put this on the ballot to let the town vote on it. Give them that opportunity. You've done it 4 times for the town garage. Give the school 1 time and see what this public will do for you in June. Thank you.
Dean Willie, Lisbon Falls. Rebutting another comment, 5 seconds. Just because somebody's not on the high honor roll or the honor roll doesn't mean that they're not performing. A good example of it is if anybody receives a C in any course, they are not allowed to be on the honor roll for anything. My son is taking AP and honors courses in just about everything, and because he gets a C in one course, it doesn't matter if his average is above 92 or whatever, he still cannot be on the honor roll. I just wanted to make that clear.
Lisa, can I say just one thing? There's a couple points I wanted to make. When we talk about pride, when I came to this town, I heard a lot of comments about Lisbon and the school department. And to be honest, I get really offended. Don't take this personally, but I get really offended when people talk down about the school department, when I hear kids aren't proud of the school or the education and stuff they get. One of the things that I learned when I was in middle school, some of you may not know, but I was a middle school principal here for a number of years. I had the luxury of having all the kids in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And what I mean by that, and I used to say this years ago, 5 years before I became superintendent, each year this town loses 5 or 6 kids that go to private schools when they go to the high school. And I used to always have that luxury, so at the middle school, 70, 75, 78, almost 80% of the kids were at or above state average. And then when you get to the high school, you already pointed it out, is that it's around 35%. We've always wondered what that is. You take 20 kids out of the mix. And maybe they're not your top kids, but you know what? A bunch of them are. You take those out of the mix, it's going to hurt your scores. So that's one thing about building a gymnasium, fixing a high school like we've been doing so that kids are proud of that. The other thing I heard was one time I talked about buying a trip bus. And it's one of the flat-nose buses or whatever. If you go to the big meets, you'll see at Falmouth, Yarmouth, all those schools have a flat-nose bus. And I was told by a community member, well, we can't have that. We're from Lisbon. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, if the state approves us, we will have a 2014-2015 trip bus taking our kids to the meets next summer. So just remember that. That's one thing I do pride in. We don't buy, I mean, you can build, I know what gym you're talking about because you have shared it with me. There's a big difference between putting infrastructure like that right on Main Street. I mean, I can tell you that the cost, the bond that we have, $5.7 million, that's up to $5.7. We have to go with the lowest bid, and if you do it now, or you could get, contractors, whatever, who may not have a lot of work, you can get it cheaper. But there's a big difference between looking at what gyms have been built in town and what we're looking at and what we need. So again, I do take pride in that. I do get offended when I hear people talk bad about Lisbon and our schools. And again, all we're asking for is put it up to the vote in June. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I would like to thank all of the members of the community who've come out tonight to make their opinions heard and to listen to comments and questions from both the school committee and the council. And thank you, Mr. Green, once again for your hard work along with the school committee and all the involved committees. At this point, Twyla, our next item on the agenda will be the consent agenda, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to suggest that we take a very, very brief break so that we can get up off these chairs for a minute and get the circulation back. 3 to 5 minutes, hopefully, and we'll come back to continue forward with our agenda. Again, thank you, everyone, because your comments and questions combined with the many emails that I know all of council have been getting have been very valuable to us. We'll return in just a few moments.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and continue with the agenda. Our next item, please, Twyla.
Is Order 2014-38 to approve the minutes of April 1, April 8, and the annual renewal of mobile home park licenses?
Make the motion to accept Order 2014-38.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Sure. We're just going to get an extra microphone for the middle of the table. I think there's one right there.
Those are all, where?
That one there?
That one on the cord.
Okay.
Okay, never mind.
I think the other ones are...
I just want to remind councilors, if anyone needs to speak at any point, please ask for the microphone so I can make sure that everyone can hear you. The next item, please, Twyla.
Is under council orders, ordinances, and resolutions, Order 2014-39, a proclamation for Municipal Clerks Week from May 4th through the 10th. We want to also let you know that our office will be displaying historical items of interest and loan from our Historical Society, and will be making available Lisbon's older assessing books and other open public records for the public to view for that week. To be sure and stop by.
Okay. We have a proclamation for Municipal Clerks Week. Would you like to read it? Should I read it?
If you like, I can read it for you. Okay. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens and local government bodies and agencies of government at other levels, and the municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality and rendering equal service to all. The municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. The municipal clerk continually strives to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, county, and international professional organizations. Where this is appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk, and therefore we, the town council, do recognize the week of May 4th through May 10th, 2014 as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend an appreciation to our municipal clerk, Twyla Lysat, and all municipal clerks for the vital service they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent.
Thank you, Twyla.
You're welcome.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion is to proclaim Municipal Clerks Week. All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you. And the next item, please, Twyla.
Order 2014-40 to adopt an ordinance for Route 196 design standards and guidelines. This is your first reading. A roll call vote is required.
Okay. Did we have anyone here from the Route 196 committee who wanted to give any introduction? We've all seen this on council, so do we need discussion? Okay. We don't actually have to read it. Do we?
Roll call? No?
I do have a question.
Okay.
Dale, I did see an email come through about some concerns from the attorney's office regarding some verbiage. Has that been corrected in this document here?
No. It's being discussed with the attorney, and hopefully when you get to the public hearing, if amendments are required, they'll be presented at the public hearing.
And we're all set to make the amendments at the public hearing?
If any amendments come forward.
Okay.
The debate with the attorney is whether or not these are standards or guidelines. I think, and that discussion is ongoing between Amanda Bunker, the planner, and Don Bellows, the chair of the planning board. And what Amanda has done is pull together, the planning board consider these as guidelines, not standards that one would absolutely have to meet. And so Amanda's pulling together similar guidelines from other communities, and we'll be talking to the town attorney about those, and we're hoping that the town attorney may change his position to some extent on enforceability of the proposal as it stands. I can tell you that the proposal that I've seen in Lisbon is very similar to design standards in Freeport, and they were meant to be not standards, but guidelines for folks to follow. And so I'm not suggesting the town attorney is kind of off base on this one, but I guess I am suggesting he may be off base on this one.
Right. So as a first reading, we can accept this as a first reading, and we'll be able to make changes from that point forward, which I think is our concern. Do we have a motion to accept this first reading of the Route 196 Design Standards and Guidelines?
I'll make that motion.
Second from Greg. All those in favor?
Let's do the roll call vote.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay. Roll call vote is Councilor Garrison.
Yes.
Councilor McTevier.
Yes.
Councilor Ward.
Yes.
Councilor Pesky.
Yes.
Councilor Bickford.
Yes.
Councilor Brunel.
Yes.
And Councilor Lunt.
Yes.
7 yeses, 0 nays. The ordinance passes its first reading.
See, that's why we have Clerks Week, so we can appreciate those reminders. Okay, the next item, please, Twyla.
Order 2014-41 to approve the order providing for the issuance of the $1.1 million in general obligation securities for the purchase or construction of a replacement public works garage.
Okay. And is this I just want to make sure that I'm looking at the right page, and as a reminder to all present, this is the Public Works Garage Bond that we've been talking about this evening, and it would go on the June ballot. Is that what we're...
You can put that in your motion, yes, and you need to include in there whether this is a 10, 20, or 30-year bond.
Okay.
As well within your motion.
So before we move forward, can you remind me of that, Mr. Halsted?
I believe we're recommending a 20-year bond, correct?
I believe it was 10.
We're recommending a 10-year bond, I stand corrected. I think the impact of the tax rate was minimal, and obviously a 10-year bond, the payback would be a huge savings, and Jessica has those numbers and can share them in one moment. But what I want to do before the council votes is talk about whether or not the bond issue ought to be 1.1 or 1.3. And I'm hearing from the public and some councilors that the focus ought to be on the ETTI building. And if that's the case, then it really needs to be a 1.3 number. And
And obviously, it would be an up-to number. If we could come in much lower than that, we would certainly attempt to do that.
This will be something that goes out for bid, so.
Well, if you're going to purchase existing, there's no bidding involved. If you're going to build new, obviously, there are yes.
All right, so.
But if the council's decision and direction is to, first and foremost, pursue the ETTI option, did I get one too many T's in there? No, I don't think I did. Then we would suggest sending the voters a 1.3 number, combined with $300,000 in cash, candidly, 1.4 million is not going to buy the ETTI building. I think 1.6 very well could, based on my discussion with the assessing office and folks who seem to understand local values. But then again, I think the possibilities with that building are tremendous, and I think that we could, if that's what the council voted to do, staff would get to work very quickly, and I think we could put together the potential savings that could be accomplished by service consolidation.
And Twyla, do we need to decide whether it'll be on June or November at this time? Yes, okay, that's what I thought. So if I understand you, Mr. Olmsted, and I think you've just sort of summarized what we heard tonight, that although we came here with 1.1 to 1.3 million as a bond request, your suggestion, since we heard from the majority of folks that ETTI would be the direction you would go in, that 1.6 million would be a more realistic number.
Yes, combined insurance settlement and bond issue. So the bond issue would be 1.3.
Okay.
And it would be an up-to number. Hopefully, we could shave that off to some extent.
Okay.
And a couple of citizens have given me some ideas about other issues that I'm not going to talk about tonight because I don't know how real or realistic they might be, but I think that when we sit down with Mr. Kelly and have a discussion, if that's the council's pleasure, there'll be other issues we can talk about that could mitigate the expense of the building.
Okay. Is there any discussion that council would like to have before we...
I have a couple things.
Okay.
I took a couple notes throughout everyone speaking this evening. But first and foremost, I just want to say thank you to everybody for coming out and sharing their opinion with council. I know that I've received a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, and I've personally responded to every single one of those emails and phone calls that I have got. And I do want you to know that I did hear you this evening. I did hear you on the phone. I did hear you when I was reading your emails, and I do appreciate everybody taking the time to get involved. If we had a small percentage of these are you guys involved in government on a monthly basis, we'd be in a different position than we are right now. Just a couple of notations I took during the dialogue this evening. I just want to make it clear that the town garage went out to the citizens twice, not 4 times. I also do want to make it clear before we get into the bonds that there's no doubt that all 3 of the facilities need to be updated. There's no doubt in my mind at all whatsoever. I graduated from that building in 2012. Not physically in the building, but class of 2012. The school's done a great job doing the homework. They've done a lot of research leading up to this time today. For the town garage, I think we need to do some more research. I think there's some more homework that needs to be done, such as an appraisal, get a direct plan, and then go execute that plan. There's a lot of rumor mill in this community of what could happen, and that's the last thing we need is to deal with rumors in this community, because nothing will happen at that point, as we all know. I had a couple more comments. No, actually, I think that's about it.
Thank you, Councilor Presky.
I just want to let everybody know, whichever way I vote on these bonds does not mean that I do not want the bonds to come. I just want them to come in November, all of them. I may win this, but I think it's better, I think it's fairer for the people in this town to be able to come out in large numbers and vote on something that's going to affect their lives for a long time. So, but I do agree with everything. It's just, it's the way it's presented that I don't.
I already did.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Anyone else?
I can see it moving.
I think there's been a lot of issues raised about the timing of when we're going to vote on these, and I just think we want to make sure to schedule them either, I think, for the issue of fairness, either all in June or all in November, just so that people know there's a fairness between the departments and it isn't, one side getting preferential treatment or the other. So I think we need to make sure, as we're going into this to vote on it, that we don't end up, scheduling this first one for a June vote, and then, if some people decide they want to do a November vote instead for the next one, that looks pretty unfair to the other side. So I think we need to make sure how we're going about voting that, all for one and one for all.
And that's we have just over 6,500 registered voters in Lisbon, so I just want to make sure that council and even the audience does understand those figures, and they do know that before we go into this vote.
Thank you. These are all important statistics. I know that we've all done a lot of thinking, a lot of hard work, making sure that we hear all the information that we need to hear. Mr. Green did point out earlier that he pointed out something that we all knew, and that is that the school bond, the school issues don't always pass at June elections. So I think we have to be careful to assume that it's going to pass just because it's in June, because in fact, school issues have failed in June elections, even though there are far fewer voters. So I think we need to keep that balance of actual numbers and the result of those numbers being at the polls. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. I agree that we need to do them all at the same time, and I think even though that technically we're on the Public Works issue right now, it's important to keep the other issues that we're going to be voting on in mind, just as citizens will keep them all in mind if they're all at the same election time. I know that the issue of town and school working together has been brought up, not only over the years, but specifically this evening. And I have to say that not only has the council been working more in recent months with the school committee, but we have been fortunate that Mr. Olmsted has had suggestions to help us to work together even more. I had the pleasure of meeting in a leadership meeting with Mr. Green and members of the school committee, along with Councilor Pesky and Mr. Olmsted, to continue a conversation of working together. I think that talking about the Public Works bond at the same time we consider how we will be voting moving forward on the other bonds keeps that need and recognition of working together. I don't think we actually need a show of hands, as was suggested earlier by one of our citizen speakers. I think that we have heard voices, and that makes far more impact, at least for me, than folks raising their hands. As I stated earlier, we've all received phone calls and emails, especially emails from folks. Some of those people are here tonight. Many times people will send us emails because they can't make it to the meeting. I'm just glad that they are willing to voice their concerns. The Public Works garage being at ETTI's location would certainly benefit both the school and the town in the long run. And since we've discussed a 1.3 million in order to reach that 1.6 point, I think it makes sense to put, to change it from 1.1 to 1.3 on our bond, and that, I had one more question. I just remembered, Jessica, did we discuss a 10-year bond in our workshop?
We did.
Okay, good.
I can give you the mill rate impact.
Okay, that'd be great.
On the 1.1, I don't have the 1.3
Okay.
numbers, but there won't be drastically different. On a 10-year, the year one impact to the mill, which will be this coming budget, 2014-15, is a half a penny on a 10-year bond. For the 2015-16 tax year, it will be a .247 increase, so it's a quarter, 25-cent increase to the mill. If you went 20-year, it would not drastically change this current. It would still be around a half a penny, it'd be a little less. The 2015-16 budget would be approximately 18 cents to the mill if you went 20-year.
So 10 years is about a quarter, 20 is 18 cents, and but at 10 years, we'd have it paid off.
And the total payback, 10 versus 20?
There's about a $250,000 difference.
So we save
between-
$250,000 by paying a
Yes.
quarter.
And I also want to point out that in the budget year 2020-2021, we have debt maturing, and that will open up $136,000, which will be a savings to the mill rate of about 30 cents. So within 6 years, you will offset any increase incurred right now, pending everything staying equal.
Okay.
No new bonds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So are we in agreement that it should change to 1.3 if we put it on a bond?
Yes.
Concerns?
Did you say mill rate versus pennies?
I'm sorry, we're not accepting comments from the audience at this time. Go ahead. Okay.
No, I think 25 cents for a 10-year bond makes sense.
At a savings of $250,000, that's a pretty big savings for going with 10 years.
We have to make a...
So the motion...
We have to make a motion for 1,300,000.
So we would make, the motion would be for 1.3 million, up to 1.3 million.
Yeah, 10 years.
And for 10 years. And I now need to know how council feels about a June versus a November ballot. What's our...
Truthfully, it would just be a yes or no vote. If it's yes, it's on June. If it's no, then it would wait.
Okay, so let's put it at June.
Well,
I think what you could do is you could make your motion either June or November, based on our charter that says that you have to hold the election no sooner than 30 days from tonight's council action, but no longer than a year from now, from this date. So the action you took place tonight could still, correct, right? Is that what you think? Yes. So you have the ability to make a motion tonight and place this either in June or November without holding a hearing and all the rest of the stuff.
Okay. So we are looking for a motion to approve the Public Works bond to be on either the June or November ballot for a 10-year bond of 1.3, up to $1.3 million.
Madam Chair? I have microphone. Given that the contention is all about when we're going to schedule the school budget, I would recommend that we move this item until after that, so we can vote on that first, and that way we're not going to, end up splitting how we want to vote.
We can say this one is even, we don't have to decide when this one is.
I think we do. Yes. Right, we have to decide now. We can pick either June or November, but we have to decide that now.
So I'm making a recommendation that we move this until after the school bond. And that way we know how we voted on the school bond, and then we can vote on this to be fair and equal all around.
Okay.
Would it be possible to group them all into one?
Want to make one motion to all of them?
I believe they're each individual.
Right.
They're each an ordinance.
Yes. All right, we have 3 papers.
So the suggestion from Councilor Lunt is to move this item,
And the second one that recommends it or not.
Okay.
Move 2014, 41, and 42 until after the end of the list.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's unanimous, there's no objection?
do we have any objections from council?
To my knowledge, we
All right.
I see none.
All right, then Order 2014-43, to approve an order authorizing the town of Lisbon to issue up to $5,700,000 in general obligation securities for a new gymnasium and related improvements at the Lisbon High School.
We've certainly had a lot of discussion on this evening. Are there any councilors who would like to make statements, or is there any discussion that we need?
You just hang on to that.
Well, as a graduate of Lisbon High in the class of '99, I remember spending a lot of time in that gym while I was there, and as people have talked about tonight, it's kind of brought back a lot of memories of when I was going through that gym, and the same way, it does make you feel demoralized being in that old Urunji facility. It makes you feel like people in town just don't always care about you as a kid, and it makes it hard to feel that you really have to work and excel and be your best. So I think you guys have changed my mind, and I want to support getting this on there as soon as we can.
Thank you. Council? I think Councilor Lunt brings up some good points when he mentions school pride, and we heard several people talk about that. I'm going to say that I'm very sensitive to that, because although I didn't grow up in Lisbon, I chose to live here, and I've been here for well over a decade. And I grew up in Brunswick and went to Brunswick schools because my parents, one of whom is from Lisbon, chose to move there because it was a better education. And I would like to see folks in Lisbon be able to say that they're better education, and that includes everything. The more well-rounded our students are, the better off we are in the community. I don't want to see folks moving to other towns because they have better school systems or better facilities. So I think that as a council, I haven't heard any councilor say that they don't support the improvements at the school. And I have to say I'm in agreement with Mr. Lunt. As a councilor at large, I sometimes get more emails or phone calls than some of the other councilors other than Councilor Garrison, because they don't have a single constituency. It's just the whole town. And I have not received a single email or phone call opposing the school bonds. Although I know that I represent everybody, not just the people who pick up the phone or send an email or come to a meeting to be heard, I also know that for every person who speaks, there's a large number of people who aren't speaking who agree. And I think that I have to consider that, and I have to consider what the folks in Lisbon who elected us, I have to consider what they want us to do. That's part of the job. And I feel right now that if June is the time that would work best for the school bond, for the gym, and it's the time that would save the town the most money, then I would be willing to move in that direction. Because it's what I've heard people say, and it's what I've had people write to me about. And I haven't heard as many convincing arguments to the contrary. You want to speak?
I'm not going to beat the horse dead. We've heard it all a long time. So at this point, I'd like to make a motion for Order 2014-43, ought to pass for the insurance of $5.7 million in general obligation securities for the Lisbon High School new gymnasium to be placed on the June ballot.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Can we do a roll call, please?
A roll call vote has been requested.
I was prepared.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, Counselor Garrison.
Yes.
Counselor Lunt.
Yes.
Counselor Mativier.
No.
Counselor Brunel.
Yes.
Counselor Ward.
Yes.
Counselor Pesky.
Yes.
And Counselor Bickford.
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 yeses and 2 noes. The order did pass.
Thank you, Tony. And the next item, please.
Order 2014-44, of recommendation, yes or no, be printed on the ballot for the $5,700,000 bond issue.
Do we have a motion?
Make the motion ought to pass.
Is it a yes you want to place on it?
Yes.
Okay, so a motion has been made for yes.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
1, 2, 3. It looks like 7-0. Was there anybody opposed? Okay, 7-0.
Thank you. And the next item?
Item is Order 2014-45, to approve an order authorizing the Town of Lisbon to issue up to $500,000 in general obligation securities for a new track and related improvements at the Lisbon High School.
I'd like to make a motion for Order 2014-45 for the insurance of $500,000, otherwise known as $500,000 in general obligation securities for a new track related to improvements for the Lisbon High School, ought to pass to appear on the June ballot.
June, okay.
Second.
Who seconded it? Greg. Okay, Greg Garrison, all right.
Can we do a roll call, please?
I'm going to request, I just want to see if anyone, do we need any discussion on this issue? And roll call vote has been requested. Okay.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Brunel?
Yes.
Counselor Bickford?
No.
Counselor Pesky?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor McTevier?
No.
And Counselor Garrison?
Yes.
5 yeas and 2 nays, order passed.
Thank you. And our next item, please.
Order 2014-46, a recommendation yes or no be printed on the ballot for the $500,000 bond issue.
Do we have a motion for yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion ought to pass yes.
Do we have a second ought to pass yes?
Second.
Choose your second. Do you just want a regular vote?
I think a regular vote is fine. All those in favor?
Okay, looks like a 7-0.
Yes.
Order passed.
Thank you. And our next,
We would go back to the one that you wanted to do.
yes.
Okay, so,
So we're going back to the Public Works bond.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the amount of $1.3 million for the June ballot.
10 years.
For 10 years, okay. 1.3, June, 10 years.
I'll second that motion.
would you like a roll call vote?
I think we should, since we did for the others.
All right. Counselor Garrison?
Yes.
Counselor McTevier?
Yes.
Counselor Ward?
Yes.
Counselor Pasky?
Yes.
Counselor Bickford?
Yes.
Counselor Brunel?
Yes.
Counselor Lund?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays, order passed.
Thank you.
And the next item would be the recommendation on the ballot for the $1.3 million bond issue, yes or no?
Make a motion that it ought to pass, yes.
Put a yes recommendation. Okay.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Motion passed, 7-0.
Thank you. And the next item, please.
2000, go ahead.
Madam Chair.
Sure.
I think you're moving away from the bonds at this point. I think for the record, it's important for staff to understand which option the council would like to have staff pursue first and foremost on the Public Works building replacement. We gave you 3 options. 1, build new. 2, look at buying Longchamps. Or 3, investigate buying ETTI. So I think, for the record, the council ought to state its preference, or perhaps prioritize the 3 different options.
Would you like to prioritize, or?
Sure, I can just offer my opinion that I think we should go with ETTI as certainly as, it makes the most sense based on all that it brings to the table, and all the citizens seem to be in favor of that as an option, and I think that would solve a lot of long-standing issues in this town, because you have issues with the fire department being located on Main Street. It's not a good location, and all the firemen there block up all the parking for everyone else, and if you free up that space, the library could expand into there, so there's a lot of benefit you would get from just buying that building that would extend way beyond Public Works, whereas if you just build a Public Works building, it doesn't fix any of those other issues. So I think that's the #1 priority. And I think we should have the other issues as just a fallback. If for some reason we can't negotiate that, then we can at least get someplace to put our trucks as well. That's what we have to do, because we have to do it. Like if your garage in your house burned down, you have to fix it. But I think we should look at ETDI as the first option.
I agree with Mark that ETCI is definitely, in my opinion, the #1 choice that we should explore as a council and as staff. It opens a lot of avenues for us to consolidate with schools, save money down the long run. There's a lot of stuff happening in the inside that eventually could be shared and can really benefit us all in the end. But I do think we should still get an appraisal for Longchamps, just to have that in the back of our minds to make sure we know it's not some crazy low number that we're going to miss. So I do think ETTI is a main priority, but I would still like to get an appraisal on Longchamps.
I think I'm hearing from council and from the general agreement, in addition to comments, that we'd like to pursue ETTI as the first priority and have the Longchamps option as a backup plan, as it were, not to let it fall out of our radar, so that we stay on board with both. Okay, we don't need to vote or anything on this, we just need direction, yeah.
As long as we have it in the record.
Okay. And the next item, please, Twyla.
Order 2014-47, the consideration of an order for a public hearing on a proposed charter amendment to reduce the number of signatures necessary to call a special town meeting to consider budget issues from 15% of the qualified voters voting in the last gubernatorial election to 10% of the qualified voters voting in the last gubernatorial election.
I think it's important to know why we have this order in front of us. And I know lots of folks who are here and many council members now and in the past have debated the question of folks voting on the town budget. And this can directly affect that in a positive way for people in town. A while back, and I know that folks remind us of it regularly, we had referendum asking folks in town whether they would like to vote on the budget. And pretty much, folks said they would like to vote on the budget. In discussions afterwards, and in looking over our charter, and in trying to find a way to make that happen, because it was what the people who voted said that they would like to have happen, we realized that we would have to have another charter commission and do more work on the charter, or we could change the amount of people it takes to have a special town meeting from 15%, which could be a hardship, to 10%, which would be an easier number, so that people could have a vote and have a meeting and have discussion if they so chose. This is only one thing that we can do, but it's a first step, because council does recognize that citizens are asking for more input, and this can offer that when our citizens feel that they have the need to. And it offers a clear process and outlines a little more clearly how to get things done. And I think it's probably not the only thing we can do, but it's the first thing we're doing, and I think it's a move in the right direction. Do we have any need for discussion on this issue with council at this point? Do I have a motion to accept this order?
I'll make that motion.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Councilor Mativer seconded. All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
The next item, please, Twyla.
Order 2014-48, for the consideration of an order for public hearing on a proposed charter amendment, which will clarify that the municipality will follow and reference Title 21A for election procedures.
And Twyla, this is one that you could offer, I think, a little clarification just for the public.
Sure. This proposed charter amendment clarifies that a candidate who wishes to be a write-in would file a declaration of intent to run 45 days before Election Day. So putting this on the June ballot gives candidates plenty of notice if they need to file a declaration as a write-in candidate by the 45th day or September the 22nd for the November election. This declaration would be similar to a nomination paper, except that signatures from registered voters would not be required. Currently, our cover charters just about everything else. So the purpose of this amendment is to adopt for municipal elections procedures used in state elections regarding the declaration of write-in candidates, along with the tabulation and reporting of those results for write-ins to be consistent with the state election procedures.
Thank you. So basically, this will have us fall in line with how the state does the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. Do we have a motion to accept this order?
Make the motion to accept.
I'll second it.
Roger.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
And the next item, please, Twyla.
Order 2014-49 to adjourn.
Make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0. Time 10:50.
This meeting is adjourned.